This is a recording from the first virtual event hosted by BetterEvaluation, and it took place in December 2012. The event takes a format of a community clinic, in which one participant is asked to describe a particular challenge that they're having, and then a facilitator leads a discussion amongst the rest of the participants where they can contribute ideas and help the first participant in overcoming their challenge. The original intention of the event was to involve a colleague from Swaziland who had a particular challenge about terms of reference. However, due to technical problems on the day, our friend in Swaziland wasn't able to join us. And so we opened it up to the rest of the participants. And one of the participants had a similar challenge on terms of reference, and in particular about how an evaluator can assess a terms of reference and decide whether it's something that they will be able to take on, but also whether they have a role in negotiating those terms of reference and contributing to them. We picked the conversation up right at the beginning, where the facilitator is introducing each of the participants.
So what I'd like to do is suggest that, Horacio, if you're willing, that we use you today as our case for the case clinic. And what I'd like to do before we actually jump into it is to welcome everybody, give a little overview of the process, and also let people check in who haven't to know where they're from and who they work with, because in this sort of case clinic, it's all of us who are the experts. So it's good to have a sense of where people are from. So if you have a microphone, maybe what I'll do is just call on folks, and if you don't have a mic, please feel free to type it into the chat room. But just give us a quick introduction of who you are and where you work so we can get some context, and then I'll give an overview of the process and we'll jump right in, okay? So just to role model that introduction, I'm Nancy White. I'm an independent consultant in Seattle, Washington, and I'm working with some of the facilitation aspects of BetterEvaluation, but I'm deeply interested in learning more because this is always towards the edge of what I'm doing, or I'm working with evaluators. So I'm a learner here. And my co-host today is Simon Hearn. Simon, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Simon Hearn. I'm a research fellow at the Overseas Development Institute in London, and I'm involved in the BetterEvaluation project as the sort of the online facilitator. So I'm managing the mailing list and the forums and the blogs and such things. And I also work on predominantly a method called outcome mapping, and I facilitate the global outcome mapping learning community as well. And I'm based here in London.
Terrific. So so let me just go down the list as I see it, which may not be as you see it. So Barbara, you want to say a quick hello?
Okay, yeah, I'm Barbara Gemmel-Heron. I'm with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and I coordinate a number of projects that are, well, I have a large GEF project right now, Global Environment Facility Project, that's undergoing its midterm evaluation, and I will be involved in several more that will be undergoing evaluation, but I'm really interested in how you can sort of mainstream this from the beginning of developing a project rather than waiting for it to happen halfway through and at the end.
Yay! Chris, another brief reintroduction for the folks who just joined. Christina,
Oh, yes, sorry, I was muted. Yes, I'm here. So my name is Cristina Sesse. I'm based in Rome, in Italy, and I work for the CGIR, which is an international research organization. It's a group, and a program called Institutional Learning and Change. And we use evaluation, monitoring evaluation, as a tool for change, for learning. And I'm involved in the better evaluation with Patricia, Simon, and Nancy.
Terrific. And Horacio, I'm going to come back to you last since we're going to work with you directly. Jenny?
Yep, I'm Jenny Humphreys, and I'm the Programme Impact Officer at Save the Children, working in the Humanitarian Department on a big capacity building project.
Terrific. Patricia?
I'm Patricia Rogers. I'm calling in from Australia, and I'm involved in the BetterEvaluation project. I'm often working as an evaluator, but sometimes working with organisations to, yeah.
Terrific. Richard?
Hello, yes, I'm in London. I'm an independent evaluator and also very interested from the perspective of having run and potentially, again, will run international environment and development programs in the future, and having seen the commissioning evaluations go wrong at the outset and also go right at the outset, I was keen to learn more and to contribute my experience. And nice to see you here, Barbara.
Thanks. Terrific. So more connections. Robin, who's also typed in, so Robin, I don't know if you have a microphone, but give you a chance to verbally chime in. If not, I'll read out your chat.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Usually the mic isn't live. Okay. I typed in, I'm Robin Beecroft. I work from Bristol in the United Kingdom, and I work for my own organisation, facilitator. So basically, I'm an independent evaluator as well. And like Simon, I'm very committed to adapting outcome mapping when possible to my role.
Terrific. Samuel? So I'm not sure if Samuel has a mic. So Samuel, feel free to type it into the chat room as well. And Sonia?
Yes. Bueno, welcome again. I'm Sonia Mora. I'm working in the Ministry of Education in Costa Rica. I am part of the Instituto of Professional Development staff. I'm working in investigation, and I made some educational projects evaluation. I think I'm going to learn a lot.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so just for those of you who just joined, Prudence in Swaziland is having internet connectivity problems, and Horacio, who joined us from Argentina, actually does have a challenge. So we're going to invite Horacio to start with the challenge. So it'll be a slightly different challenge, but it does relate, I think, to this front-end question in terms of reference. And I want to give you just a micro overview of the process we're going to use today. It goes by lots of different names. You may recognize parts of it. We call it a community clinic. And essentially, we invite the person with the challenge to tell us a brief story of their challenge. And then we will ask them, we meaning all of us, will ask them, Horacio, questions about his challenge. And you could do this via chat, or you can do it verbally. Right now the sound is good. If the sound is challenging, we'll probably mute people and unmute you as you wish to talk by indicating in the chat room. But we'll play that by ear. And then at this question part, it's not about giving advice or telling people what to do. It's just asking clarifying questions. And sometimes the whole thing really opens up right there by a question introducing a new perspective, and our conversation will focus there. When I start sensing that you guys have experiences or ideas or suggestions, then we'll switch to, well, you know, what suggestions or experiences might you share with Horacio? The only ground rule I offer here is we're not here to tell Horacio what to do. We're here to share our knowledge and experience. And then Horacio, you can also ask any questions. And then at the end, I'm going to ask you what you heard here today in terms of what you learned and what your next step is. And then one fun thing to do, and we can try and do this, is follow up with you in a certain period of time and see how your work is going and turn this into a blog post on BetterEvaluation, because very interestingly, usually when someone has a challenge, other people have a similar challenge, so they want to know what happens next. It's like, you know, you want to know the next episode of the soap opera or the great story. So does that make sense in terms of process? If there's any questions right now?
It's okay.
Okay. So Horacio, you are being totally put on the spot here.
Okay.
And we appreciate it. But why don't you start by telling us your story about evaluability assessment, you know, how you came to this question, and give us some context.
Okay. Well, my name is Horacio. I live in Argentina, and I work in an NGO that has an ecumenical background, but actually it's a kind of technical office that works in, well, someone's ringing. that works in training and advisory consultancy services. We work in South America. It's a regional organization, so we work in South America with the exception of Brazil and Venezuela, 8 countries. And my position there is I'm in charge of planning, monitoring, evaluation, impact, working in several projects with social organizations, NGOs, churches, ecumenical organizations, interreligious organizations. So in the past month, I've been working in an evaluation of a program in the Gran Chaco area that is that's in the center of South America. This area of the Gran Chaco is partly in Argentina, partly in Paraguay, partly Bolivia, and this is a program that is supported by an ecumenical agency and is being implemented by 5 institutions, 3 in Argentina, 1 in Paraguay, 1 in Bolivia, that accompanies, trains, support indigenous organizations in this area. So the program works with 5 institutions, 5 NGOs that support indigenous organizations in the Gran Chaco. So the program works in cycles, 3-year cycles, and this is the 2nd cycle, and it comes to an end of the second cycle, and before starting the 3rd cycle, they decided to make an evaluation, and they call us and another consultant. So basically, they sent us a draft of terms of reference, which we drafted. Again, included some information that we thought it was relevant. I had already drafted some terms of reference before, but in this occasion, we've also followed some international organizations and multilateral organizations guides about how to write a terms of reference. The Canadian Development Cooperation Agency, the World Bank, and others. So basically, the items that are usually included in the terms of reference. But when we received the draft that the agency gave us, there were some points in their proposal saying that these concepts that were in the plan were not sufficiently developed, or this methodology was not sufficiently developed, or this strategy that was decided by the board of the program was not implemented, or the monitoring system was not properly implemented during the past 3-4 years. So it was like they were opening the umbrella before doing the evaluation, saying in case in the evaluation you find that this didn't work, you need to know this in advance. But actually some, or I would say most of the issues that they were bringing for us to consider were actually very important for the evaluation, like, as I said, the strategies not having been implemented, or a monitoring system not implemented, or methodologies that were not developed. So my question was, if in this case, if an evaluability assessment should have been needed, and if the results of such evaluability assessment should have been included in the terms of reference, because it affects the final report and results of the evaluation.
So, you know, has this happened now? Is this something still in progress, or did you have some specific response that you gave to them?
It's not finished, but well, actually, I'm working on the final report. Yeah, the final report has not been released yet, but we drafted a preliminary report, and there was a meeting with the board where we presented the results to them. And I would say yes, it affected the evaluation. because we finally in the report we highlighted that there were some issues that had to do with the system and with the strategy that had to this issue has to do with the monitoring and evaluation system of the program. So there were difficulties in developing the evaluation because there was some information that it was difficult to get because the systems were not in place. It was difficult to get, details of activities, reports, information was not well systematized. So there were some issues that had to do with their policies and with their system, namely the monitoring and evaluation system that affected the way we conducted the evaluation. And I think that if we had had an evaluability assessment before going into the evaluation, I think that this evaluation could have been different. But since we are talking about the terms of reference, I don't know how to include that, or if it should have been included in the terms of reference.
Okay, so this is a great starting question. I want to open the floor for anyone to ask any clarifying questions from Horacio to get us started. And I'm not sure, Horacio, is that the background noise in your office?
Yes, it's in the office. Sorry, I will mute my microphone.
No worries. I just want you to know, to make it easy for you to unmute yourself here. Patricia, you had started asking a couple of questions of Horacio at the start. You want to jump in? And don't forget to unmute yourself. I'm not sure if I lost Patricia.
Yes, it's always tricky to remember to unmute yourself. No, can you hear me now? I just had to unmute myself.
Yes.
Good. Before I ask about the evaluability assessment, just could I ask, you said that you'd suggested some revisions to the terms of reference based on these documents from CEDA and the World Bank. Do you remember what were some of the changes that you made to the terms of reference because of those documents?
Yeah, let me see. Let me check. I think that one of the big changes was. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. One of the changes was about roles, responsibilities, and accountability. That was one, because the evaluation was decided by the board of the program, but the contract, let's say, the terms of reference was signed by the agency that financially supports the program, but the agency is also part of the board in a let's say advisory accompaniment role. But I wanted to make sure that who decides and what are the roles of who in the board, the agency, and the consultant. That I think that was one. And clarifying the questions. I would say clarifying the questions and the scope of the evaluation, because we received a long list of questions, and we wanted to make clear, to make it more organized, and so that it makes sense for the evaluation. And methodology, of course. Methodology. That chapter was much more developed in our version.
Good.
So you were responding to this terms of reference, correct?
Yes.
That was your role.
Yes.
So, and Sonia noted in the chat room, she says it means people didn't talk about some things. How did you negotiate it in terms to complete the terms of reference? Did you have the opportunity to negotiate?
Well, I have to say that I myself didn't have much room for negotiation, but I think that in this case, I was part of the team that worked in the plan, in the strategic plan, when the second phase of the program was launched. So I knew the program. I was quite familiar with the theory of change before, behind the program, and I would say that for the information I was given was basically, please take into account that this that should have been supposed to happen according to the plan didn't happen, or the monitoring system that was supposed to be implemented 3 years ago, it was not implemented. So by the time I was signing the terms of reference, it was just information that I took into account. But when carry on the information, myself and my teammate, we realized that the fact that the monitoring team had not been implemented properly, it affected the quality of the evaluation, because the quality of the information that we needed was not there. Finally, I mean, we interviewed the people, we visited the communities, the organizations, we did all that work. But with a proper monitoring system in place, it could have been different.
So there's probably two phases of challenge here. One was, you know, should that information have been included in the terms of reference in order for you to understand what was going on? And two is, what do you do when you don't have the data you need? Sonia says, okay, we have the same problems here. So clearly you've struck a chord.
Yes, yes. But I think that the second question, I could work with that.
So I guess one of the questions I have is that when you talk about, you know, how useful it would have been to do an evaluability assessment, I understand there's different components of that people talk about, and some of them, those components can come in even if people don't formally do an evaluability assessment. So I have a question about the theory of change. Was that articulated in the terms of reference or in the project documentation? That's one of the components that's often in an evaluability assessment. So was that in the terms of reference? A theory of change or a logic model?
The logic model. Yeah, the logic model. Actually, the evaluation was the draft we received said clearly that the basic document that I should take into account for the evaluation was the log frame.
Right. Okay.
So let me also invite anyone else here to chime in with questions before we start diving into solutions. And feel free to take the mic or to type in your questions.
Okay, I have another question then. In the terms of reference, was there any indication about the type of data that were available, or was that just not mentioned at all?
Can you repeat the question, please?
In the terms of reference, did it have any discussion about the data that were available, or was it just really, here are our questions and this is what we want you to do the evaluation? You know, these are the questions, this is the purpose, and didn't actually talk about what data were currently available?
We knew what kind of data was available. Yeah, we had a list, and when we began the evaluation, or before beginning the evaluation, we were given or shown a file with all the reports and information there. It was activity reports and institutional reports and the yearly program report, the consolidated reports.
Okay.
So we knew what information was available.
And you also knew what was missing. Is that at that stage?
Yeah. Yes.
So if I understand what's usually meant by an evaluability assessment, sometimes it is about setting out a theory of change or a logic model as part of that, reporting on something about implementation and what data are available, and a number of things about how stable
Right.
the program is, and how much genuine demand for the evaluation there is. Which bits of those were missing then? Because what I've heard is that there's a logic model and there is an indication of data. So what was missing?
I think that what was missing was basically information that could have been provided by the monitoring system. We had some activity reports, not all the activity reports, but we felt that during evaluation, if we had some more detailed information coming from the monitoring system, the evaluation could have been better. But we were told in advance, yeah, please pay attention that the monitoring system didn't work at all. So basically, the source of information, the monitoring system as a source of information was missing.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Boy, that's kind of like, this is an ignorant question as a non-evaluator, but isn't that just wasting their money?
In what sense?
Well, if there's not the data to do the evaluation, again, this becomes, why are you doing it?
No, I didn't get the question.
It's. I'm trying to think of another way to say it.
Okay.
Why are they requesting an evaluation if they don't have the data for the evaluation? I mean, isn't that crazy? I know this is a stupid question.
No. We had the resources, and we were able to interview both the indigenous organizations and the NGOs. So we had a chance to get direct information from the actors in the field. And actually, we did a lot of interviews and focus groups and observation visits to the communities. Yeah, we had the resources to do that.
Okay, so it's just some of the data. Okay, I was getting that.
Right.
So others in the group, do you have other questions?
Yes. I think Horacio had the same problem that we have. It's because the project, any project doesn't have any evaluation, doesn't have talked about any evaluation, any kind. So our job in that case, it's we to propose the evaluation, we have to know the program, because we didn't know anything about the program. I think the authorities only said, okay, you evaluate this, and says nothing about what kind of evaluation or what they think will be evaluated.
Mm-hmm.
And we made some kind of term of reference, but we don't have that practice here in how to say it? Institutionalizada.
Institutionalized.
Yes, thanks. It's because I'm reading and I wrote, but my speaking is terrible. We are recently implementing the terms of reference, because here at the office it didn't make, never. And we are a young group of evaluators, and we are now in entorno. How do you say?
Around.
Yes, yes, thanks. Because in education we have some kind of problems, because people don't want to speak, people don't want to give information about any kind of things. And we have to be clear in the terms because...
Sonia, hold on one second. Horacio, you want to mute for a second while Sonia's talking?
If I want to what?
Oh, mute just for a second while Sonia's talking so we don't get the background sound. I think, is that your office?
Yeah, but it's not here. So yeah,
okay.
But it's not here. It's
okay,
not, but I can mute it. But
no, it might be Sonia's office. Okay, sorry, Sonia. Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, thanks. No, it's because sometimes I'm a little confused because Horacio said that the terms of reference, they didn't do it. It given to them.
Yeah.
And clear? And we have the same problem, I think, because the people who gives the order of evaluation, they said, okay, I want this and this and this, but it isn't clear. It isn't clear. There's they're talking about the public opinion or the money, just that. And they don't think in quality of evaluation of the evaluation, quality of the education, or what kind of criteria they're using. They only say, okay, do this. And in this case, I think he and we, yes, we share the problem. But I want to ask him what recommendation would be made from this experience to the novel evaluators.
Good. Thanks, Sonia. Horacio,
if I may say something.
Go ahead.
Yeah, very shortly. Yeah, very shortly. In our case, we knew the program. We knew the program, and I guess that we knew that there were some basic conditions given for the evaluation to be carried on, to be implemented. It's not the same case as Sonia is saying, in the sense that we were not given an evaluation, or we were not told to do an evaluation without knowing anything or having little information about the program that was being evaluation. Yeah. So my question is, in case I'm thinking about the future, how to work in the future, how to work better in the future. In the case that you have little information about the program, and if you think that there is that an evaluability assessment is needed before getting into the proper evaluation, if the results of the evaluability assessment should be discussed, negotiated, I don't know what, with your counterparts, and the results of this assessment be included in the terms of reference. Because I think it's also a way to put clear what can be achieved and what should not be expected of the evaluation. If the evaluation can be done.
Okay.
If the evaluation can be done.
Yes, it's because in this case it's a vertical organization, and it make the special minister made an order, and we do.
Right.
In this case, we try to know the educational spaces, the people, and we are inside the organization. We know the teachers kind of works, and I don't know how to. entorno. The entorno. And we know that, and we try to interpret it, and we try to speak with the people of despacho. Sometimes we have a good conversations with them to hear that there is a reference. But sometimes we have to work only with documents, only with project, and go ahead, because there are a kind of problems of communication. Yes.
So it sounds like we're starting to jump into the ideas and solutions part. So, if there's other clarifying questions, I encourage people to keep asking them. But now let's see what the group has to say in terms of ideas or experiences for Horacio. So again, you can do this in the chat, or you can go ahead and grab the audio. But how do you deal with this challenge? And I think actually there's a couple layers that have been exposed to this challenge, which is at the TOR level and at what do you do once you've got the situation level. So any ideas? And don't forget to take yourself off mute if you want to say something.
This is Patricia. I'd like to comment on this. I think it's a terrific idea to encourage people who are developing terms of reference to do an evaluability assessment in terms of looking at what they know about the project or the program, and in particular the adequacy of the information that's available, because what I sometimes see in terms of references are exactly about trying to use an evaluation to make up for gaps in the monitoring, and in fact not giving any indication about the quality of data that's there, so that the evaluators put in a proposal and assume that there's going to be some monitoring data there, and have no forewarning about gaps in it, so that what they propose as a methodology isn't really doable. So I just think this forewarning is really important, and then being realistic about what can be done in the evaluation. I mean, maybe it's possible to do interviews and recreate some of the monitoring data, but in some cases it won't be possible, and you need to be realistic about that. So I think it sounds like a great suggestion.
Thanks, Patricia.
Richard here, if I could.
Jump in, Richard. Good.
Hi, just to kind of add to what Patricia's saying, it seems like indeed a really good idea if you've got an evaluability assessment ahead of the terms of reference being developed and advertised. But how feasible is that likely to be? I mean, that's expecting the evaluand to have an understanding of their data and of evaluation, which may well often not be the case, that would be sufficient. And in particular, depending on the type of methodology being used, the quality of the data, they may think that they've got their kind of monitoring data, for example, and which would be maybe usually not the whole part of the evaluation, but often an important part of the data sources that are looked at. But are they in a position to be able to say if that's of a quality which is going to be really useful for the evaluators? Just some questions I'm throwing out there rather than answers. But
So it sounds like, Richard, what you're saying is there's a set of questions or probes that the evaluator may also need to make rather than assuming.
Yeah, I think it's always a difficult negotiation in the sense that the evaluand wants to commission the evaluator, but the evaluator, at what point do you commit on either side? Because you're always going to go in somewhat blind, I feel. or if you take so much time to look at the data and to and do an evaluability assessment,
Right.
you know, that's a lot. That's a fairly significant piece of work in itself. Perhaps.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I was just thinking about the OAC DAC guide, and I'm just putting the link in here. It talks about evaluability in terms of the feasibility of an evaluation. And there's I think there's two parts to that, and I think one is highly desirable and one is not necessarily. The first one is about whether it's adequately defined, its results verifiable, and if evaluation is the best way to answer questions posed by policymakers or stakeholders. And I think that's actually a management imperative to do, that, you know, we shouldn't just evaluate everything because we have to evaluate everything, because sometimes we already know so much from the monitoring, you know, that this program has hardly started. It's been massively delayed. There's been major problems with implementation. We already know all of that, and wheeling out an evaluation to say has it been effective and efficient and so on might be really wasted resources, because we already know that, and we should be fixing the problems rather than restating them. And so I think having this this sort of due diligence really within an organisation to say, don't just do evaluations for the sake of it, but look at if it's really going to add value. I think that's very, very important. But I'm not sure to what extent organisations have that freedom, or whether there's just this obligation that they should evaluate because they're required to evaluate. I'm not sure. What do people find in their experiences? Is there just this necessity to evaluate, even if people know it's going to be a waste of time?
Well, to me, you're talking about one is a values question from both the commissioner of the evaluation and the potential or chosen evaluators. I mean, is there a moral obligation to ask this question?
Yes.
I don't know. What do you guys think? Or professional, if moral is the wrong word. Silence. I mean, okay. So, Horacio,
Yes.
Your organization is providing a consulting service here, right?
Right.
You know, how did you ask this question, or do you think it's important to ask this question?
Well, I would say that after this discussion, what I would do is not an in-depth assessment, but I would go for a kind of quick assessment. I have a feeling that according to to what was said, I would go for more a quantitative assessment of the data, and not more into the quality of the data, and see how that may affect the objectives of the evaluation and what can be reasonably expected from the evaluation. And I think that is as far as I can go, because it's true. If I go into I would say, yeah, in-depth assessment, evaluability assessment is almost like doing the evaluation itself. So I think it's worth doing that, but it should be a kind of quick assessment. And I think I would use it as a tool for a negotiation with the counterpart, and I'm still not sure if I would include that in the terms of reference.
And,
but I'm quite sure
Horacio, would you see that as your responsibility as the evaluator reviewing these terms of references. So you would have to then do that outside of any kind of contract that you might get later on.
Yeah, that's also a good question, because that would imply time and resources. So that's why it should be really a kind of quick assessment. Yeah, I don't know if you're going this way, but the question is, if to do the evaluation I have to use my time in doing the availability assessment, it may take quite a lot of time before signing the terms of reference.
Yeah.
But I would say yes. I would say that it would be better that the person in charge of doing the availability assessment is the person or the team in charge of doing the evaluation, not necessarily the person negotiating the terms of reference with the person who's asking, or the organization who's asking for the evaluation.
That's interesting. It sounds like then there's a kind of responsibility on both parties, for the commissioner as well as the evaluator. And I think a lot of the sort of evaluation associations embed some of these sort of responsibilities and principles in terms of the role of the evaluator, which I think is quite important. And interesting, I was speaking to someone the other day who's a very experienced evaluator, and they received a request for proposals like a TOR for an evaluation, which he, in his experience, looked at and said that can't be done. What they're asking for is impossible. And so he actually wrote back to the person and said, what you're asking for is impossible, and anyone who replies to this RFP is essentially giving you lies, because what you're saying is impossible. But he saw that as quite a big thing and wouldn't normally do that, and hasn't done it since. But I think it's kind of, you can almost see it as part of the responsibility of an evaluation community to play that kind of role in challenging these terms of reference that get published.
Right.
So, Simon, you just said something very intriguing there. This is Nancy again. I'm thinking about BetterEvaluation, and, would you go to a site like BetterEvaluation and say, and is this ethical, even ethical, saying, just receive this terms of reference, I don't think it is doable, what do you think? And therefore you could go back to the commissioner saying, listen, I in my professional opinion, this is not doable, and I checked it with my professional community. Would that be an ethical and useful strategy?
It might be. I think a lot of care would have to be taken, and I think because not all terms of reference are, a standard are the same, and so you may have BetterEvaluation in its experience and capacity. Some of the members there saying, well, we don't think this can be done, but then someone elsewhere might say, well, actually, we've got this approach that would seem to apply well to it. So I think you'd have to be careful, but it might be an interesting thing to test.
So I'm looking at the clock too, and I want to give a few moments for Horacio to share what you're thinking now that you've heard this and what you're doing next, and also to check if there's other comments or questions from anyone in the group, and then I'm going to toss it over to Patricia for a quick wrap-up. So anyone have any other comments or questions for Horacio?
I would say that the next time I would go for, as I said, for a quick assessment. Some kind of basic assessment that can serve me as a tool for negotiating terms of reference, and not trying to be careful with the resources, especially time invested in doing this kind of assessments. And it is clear that it affects the the terms of reference in the objectives and the expected outcomes of the evaluation. If the assessment clearly says that what is expected of the evaluation is not possible, it's not reasonable, then I shouldn't move forward with evaluation. But if the evaluation can be continued, then it will affect the terms of reference. But I'm not sure if I would include the results of the terms of reference if I would include the results of the evaluability assessment in the terms of reference, or I could just mention that the assessment was done and that's it. Mm-hmm. I think that I would go that way, and I think that what you said about the OECD DAC standards is also very useful, and I think that way of looking at the standards is also very good.
Mm-hmm. Richard, again, if I could add something.
Please, Richard.
Hi, Horatio. Yes, I think you're right to highlight the idea of negotiating. One approach I put on the table is that, which is not uncommon, is if you're offered the evaluation, at that point you can make it very clear that you are willing to accept, but obviously you need to find out more from them in terms of the quality of the data, in terms of quite how the methodology you've proposed is going to be, basically at the point of doing an evaluation design. And if the evaluand is demonstrates indicates willing to work with you on the evaluation design, and to when you can actually specify in precise detail what will and will not be done. And that's the kind of point after reference, and you can say, okay, if there's flexibility, I'm willing to go ahead and doing the evaluation design phase when you're already under contract. You're refining the evaluation further. I don't know what others think.
Yeah, you are very right. You are very right. Thank you.
So that seems to me like these are, professional standards of, negotiating to do it right.
Sure. And I would just like to mention, I guess, have one word of caution, which is that some versions of evaluability assessment talk about it as saying, is it ready to be evaluated, with the notion that early on the project's sort of bedding down, and then once it's stable and everything's sort of in place and it's not moving anymore, not changing anymore, then you can go about evaluating it. And that's really based on a very particular idea about the sorts of projects that we have, that we get them sorted out and then we keep them constant. And what that doesn't do is really accommodate projects which are always having to adapt and respond to changing situations. And what I wouldn't want to expect our terms of reference to have is to take that very narrow view of evaluability assessment, which is about saying, is it ready to be evaluated? Because a lot of projects will never settle down, and so by that definition, they'd never be evaluated, and that's not going to be helpful for us. That's just a caution.
That's right.
Maybe what we're talking about is not an evaluation assessment per se, but just a few questions to ask yourself when you're reviewing in terms of reference.
Well, I think the issue is about, yes, from both sides, that it's the organisation that's developing the terms of reference needs to ask themselves, is it feasible to do an evaluation? Is there anything that's going to get in the way and make it not possible to do it? Which might be the fact that actually we haven't really properly implemented it, and we should get that done happen first of all, or the data just aren't there and we're just really going to have such huge gaps. That broad question I think needs to be answered, yes. And if the the commissioning agency needs to answer it, and I think the evaluator needs to check it's been answered, probably.
So I'm looking at the clock, and it's probably a good time to do a quick wrap-up. Personally, Horacio, first, a big thank you to you to stepping into the gap when the famous intertubes and the internet are not working for us in some parts of the world. Patricia, I would also like to invite you just to say something brief about Better Evaluation for those who might not know about it on the call.
Sure. Better Evaluation is an international collaboration to share what we know about how to do evaluations better, and so it's partly a portal to access resources, examples, guides, tools that people have found particularly useful, and to also document and explore challenges in good practice and examples of good practice. So we're always very keen to hear from people about either resources they've found to be useful or questions they've got, and to explore those by pooling our knowledge and our experience. And I'll put the URL in the window.
In the chat room.
Yes.
Great. Terrific. Terrific. And also just noting at the bottom of the Google Doc, we've harvested the references shared in the webinar, and I'll double check to make sure we pulled everything out. So those are on the Google Doc. I'm going to put that URL again in the chat room so it's available. And we'll finish these up and make them available, as well as the recording, to other folks who couldn't be on the call today. So this is the first of our webinar series. There's going to be clinics and presentations and all sorts of good stuff in the coming year. But we thank you for joining us today, and if you have any comments about this webinar or suggestions for future ones, please type them in the chat box, because I think the other thing that's a hallmark about Better Evaluation is always learn, always improve. So Simon, any closing words from you?
Okay. No, apart from to say that the recording will be made available. We'll send round the tidied up notes. Hopefully produce a little summary out of this as well. And yeah, thank you very much for joining. Really good to see you all.
And Horacio, again, thank you for you. We'll have a little post on this, and we invite you
Thank you very much.
Tell us what happens next with your work here.
Okay, thank you very much.